Jeff. Jeff. Jeff.
Jeff Stein is our national and presidential expert, noted author. You can find his books at your favorite bookstore. The Iowa Politics Report, the Iowa Business Report come to us from the mothership, where he's the big mother. It is KXCL, Cedar Falls, Waterloo. Hi, Jeff.
So before the break,
yes,
you said something about, and speaking of scaring you,
yes,
Jeff will be along in a moment.
Indeed.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize you were on the air so early. Jeez, I've always been so nice to you.
Until today, the one day that I actually log in to hear you promote that I'll be coming up. That's the only day you've ever been nasty.
Well, I've actually had multiple people ask me if your middle name is actually McGillicuddy. And I said, no, it's not Jeff McGillicuddy Stein. So there he is. I don't know why I started saying that, but it's sticking. All right. So,
well, I've been called worse by better. So there you go.
Well, that's not the better part's not a high bar. Okay. So I want to do something here. You and I haven't done this in a while. I want to get wonkish and look at numbers as best as we can and do this because we got the DNC next week, and so obviously we'll be talking about that. And then we get into Labor Day, but we're going to right now, there's a trajectory here for the Dems to go in with a lot of momentum into September. With 2 months left to go in this election, they're going to get the DNC, get Labor Day week, which is kind of a garbage week for news anyway. Boom, you get into September, and the Dems are going to be firmly in control. This on top of the fact that in the last 3 weeks, the poll numbers that have moved, and once again, polls take them with a grain of salt because, once again, Generation Z millennials are not being involved in those a lot of the time, at least not consistently with reliability. They have been moving towards Harris and Walz, and it has been something that is becoming more and more clear that this change is sticking. And it's unless Trump can figure out some way that doesn't involve begging for Biden to get back in the race, I just don't know how he's turning this around.
Well, one of the things that has worked in the Democrat ticket's favor is the fact that they were named. They were approved by the delegates voting, and they have not had to do anything that was not well controlled. And I say that not as a criticism. It is a compliment. I'm hearing all of these people, and I have opined, you can't use this strategy forever. But for those who have said, well, why doesn't she sit down and do an interview? Why?
Yeah, why?
At this point?
Exactly.
Because
here's the
thing. Right now, you're the new thing. Use whatever analogy you want. And so, therefore, it's the fresh ticket. Even though she was on it 4 years ago and was primed to be on it again this time, there's a difference when it's a generational change at the top. I mean, that's all there is to it. So why in the world did you do anything and risk screwing it up? As you said, there is momentum heading into Chicago next week. Why do anything to screw that up? Show up, give a great speech, and then worry about, do I sit down for an interview with Norah O'Donnell? Do I do this? Do I do that? And by the way, I would have the ticket sit down. I would have the vice president and the governor sit down together for that first major interview. Not because either couldn't handle it alone, but it's the symbol of moving forward. And this is a team and all of this. And so I would take all the goodwill from the convention, leverage it into one good sit-down joint interview, and play the calendar out, to your point. Mm-hmm. You've got Labor Day, which is the 2nd. This first debate between Trump and Harris is supposed to be the 10th. So the calendar is nicely compressed.
Thuffer and Thuckatash, the 10th. I'm sorry, had to do that.
Why? I think Minneapolis and Chicago are all rising up and asking
why. And Seattle. Thank you, my friend. But no, it's why? Because I don't know what was up with that filter they put on him, but they made. I always thought the filter was just for the image behind it. It didn't actually turn the person talking into a kitty cat. But that being said, Yeah, nice job on X. That's where you bury him. You're right, though. It's the 1-2 punch. It is the 1-2 punch. I like that idea. And you can do that interview with, I mean, obviously, I don't think you necessarily want to go to Fox, but you can do that with a CNN or an ABC and really kind of, and say, hey, we're not going to shy away from just, questions. Off you go. I think that that's going to be something. Those guys are polished. Right now, you're watching these speeches, and you're right. They're prepared. It's a controlled environment, but God, they look polished. And Walz, when he's coming back on rebuttal points, he's delivering them as you want them to be delivered. I mean, it really is. It's a tough reality for the Trump Vance ticket because this is not what they were expecting to go against at all, and they clearly are showing it.
And that's why I cannot understand why they don't focus. This is political. I cannot understand why they don't focus on issues. Because of the fact that the personality thing, you don't know what it is you're going after. You don't have your argument set. You had it with Biden, but you never dreamed he wouldn't be the candidate. So when Trump still spends half of his time at the podium in a rally criticizing Biden, well, okay, that's nice, but you need to either make it Biden-Harris, because it is her administration too, because you can't have that both ways. But it just, this is the thing, that, and I think America deserves this, but it may not happen. The two tickets have sharp opposition to one another in a variety of fundamental issues. Mm-hmm. Economy, energy, how to provide for citizens, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, go down. I don't know that they agree on anything. The fact that they may have agreed on September 10th, well, that's kind of a stunner. They don't agree on anything. So if you made this an issues-generated election and just highlighted that, I think that the citizens would be far better served, quite obviously. But I don't know that those on the right can help themselves, and I haven't seen enough from the folks on the left.
Well, here's the problem, and I think this is part of the problem. We now, since 2010, have had very generic talking points. We're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. We're going to cut taxes. We're going to do these things. And it comes down to specifics. And on one side, you do get Harris and Walz who will say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. 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 Republicans, let's just be honest, they don't have a game plan. They'll wait till they get in power. Then the people behind the curtains write out the bills. They get the stuff done, and then they present it, and they kind of push it through. They're not a party. They have become a party that does not have very established, clearly discussed, here are where the tax cuts are coming. Here is our specifics to our education policy outside of letting parents take over the classroom. I mean, a lot of their stuff, I think now, after 16 years, out of 14 years, is basically just kind of these generic complaints, and it gets really hard when that's all you've had, and abortion, which now you've got to try to avoid.
I don't think the Democrats are stating their positions very well, though. I mean, I think that the whole thing, and I'm not saying they should at this point, because this is the introductory period. Yeah. Right?
They're in a different stage than Trump Vance.
Okay, and Vance it's just Trump. And let's face it, with all due respect to the governor of Minnesota, nobody cares. Nobody cares that it's Vance, nobody cares that it's Walz. Because it's Trump versus Harris. Period.
Oh, you've just lost every invite from Minnesota. You just have.
I'm already barred at the border. I can't cross over to the north. But the fact is, I mean, the vice presidential choice. I mean, these people who are talking about, the Republican choice. Nobody cares. You're either voting for Trump or you're voting against him.
All right.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, right?
I'm going to bring up, this is the electoral-vote.com. League of Women Voters puts this out, and it's a great website. You and I have talked about this website before because, as you stated, this is not a national election. It's a state-by-state election. And they go through this, and they not only look at the presidential race, they currently have the Senate as a 51-49 for the Democrats, which I thought is interesting. That's worth maybe a discussion for another day. But I want to just look at the Electoral College because it's a numbers game. It's a math game. And Harris right now is leading 287 to 235. Arizona now is in the blue camp. That I don't know. You saw that story about the abortion amendment to the Constitution in Arizona, bidding approved. That's now on there. It's a 69% approval rate in Arizona for that. That's big trouble for them. You've got North Carolina, and I think this is not so much to do with Trump, but I think it's the loon ball brigade that they've got running for state offices in North Carolina. That's now literally a toss-up state. And even Nate Silver is...
Wait a minute. The Loon Ball Brigade.
Have you seen the clown car? Have you seen the clown car that's the North Carolina GOP? They are... Oh, gosh. It's just precious. I mean, I got Royce White up here in Minnesota, but that is like that's a never-ending buffet in North Carolina right now. That being aside, you even got Nate Silver, and once again, I don't really... Nate Silver... But he has now started moving Florida. He wasn't really even, it's like Wyoming. He was not really even considering Florida in the play column. He now has moved Florida into, we need to start paying attention to Florida because of their constitutional amendment on abortion, which is apparently polling somewhere between 60 and 65%. And so the numbers, you look at this, the numbers are not really doing too great for Trump right now. And granted, honeymoon period, you're right. They're rolling it out next week, the DNC. But this is what I'm getting point. We're into September before Trump's going to be able to try to put some kind of cohesive counterpoint. And right now, all the Duke can do is ramble about crowd sizes. And I'm just wondering where this is, at this point, I'm starting to look at numbers and I'm just like, I don't know how he's going to bounce back from this at this point.
He's putting all the eggs in the debate basket, it would appear. With the concept being, hey, the last time I debated the Democrat candidate, they pulled him from the race. Well, that was then. But one thing I
don't think that's a good strategy. I think Kamala Harris is looking. She is, especially after that whole thing with the journalists. I think that she is just wanting to get in there and take him down like a prosecutor would in a trial.
Well, but here's the thing. All right, she did very well. And now I'm going back to 2019.
Yeah, okay.
She did very well in that first debate, calling Biden out. That was the high point of her campaign, though. And again, we've had this conversation about what I think are her deficiencies as a campaigner, but that was when she was running her own campaign for president and didn't make it to the caucuses. It's a different thing when you're the national candidate. It's a different thing when you are, when you've had 4 years of experience as the vice president. The thing that is going to be interesting is, can the Trump team recalibrate by looking forward? They've not shown an ability to do that. And here's the thing that I say to every Republican. Well, there's one thing I'll say briefly. I have heard from directly some people who used to have a pipeline to Trump, people who you would think would have a pipeline to Trump. And you'd know them by name. And each of them, I've overheard conversations where they've said, do you know how to get a hold of somebody there? Because you need to focus on the economy and the border and crime. Enough of the rest of it, enough with what racial makeup, et cetera, et cetera. So when you've got people on the inside who can't get word in, there's a serious issue. There's no question.
And you and I have talked about the fact that there's no real state presence for Trump in a lot of these states. And now they're announcing they're going to outsource a lot of their get out the vote people. And I'm like, okay, do you understand how you're going to have a patchwork quilt where, sure, you might get one or two states where it worked pretty well, but you're going to have states which are just going to be an absolute joke if you just do that. I mean, here's
the absolute joke.
Yeah.
You've got all of these people on that side who say rigged election in 2020, everything was fake, it was stolen, blah, blah, blah. When I have asked people who are tasked with that, what have you done to fix it? The answer is, well, we're going to swamp them this time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cajuns. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I got two specific questions for you about the campaigns. Jeff Stein joining us. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. In the afternoons on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. And at night on 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Jeff Stein joining us as usual here on a Wednesday. Jeff, I'm going to ask you a question. Now, once again, we can't foresee something. I mean, Joe Biden withdraws. All of a sudden, the race changes dramatically. So, barring any major announcements, outcomes or something like that, will Donald Trump and Vance win or lose this race by their ability to counterpunch Harris and Walz's feeling of hope and joy?
Will they be able to win by counterpunching?
Because, all right, so I'll give you a great example.
No, I understand the question. Not if they're counterpunching, because it comes off as mean-spirited.
Oh, a good point. Okay.
If they focus on this is what we will do because I already did it once, but I'm afraid it's going to be the mean-spirited side. And I don't think you combat what used to be hope and change. Now it's hope and joy, right? I mean, you don't beat the happy warrior by looking like a mafia figure.
Well, and Vance had that, softball question put to him. It's like, what makes you happy? And it's like, well, I'm happy about a lot of things, but right now I'm really angry. And you're like, okay, wait a second here. You seem to be missing the point is that Walz and Harrison Walz, regardless of what you think, they definitely have sparked this feeling of hope and joy, and there's excitement. There's this. Walz is himself, just a slice of Midwestern love out there. I mean, you have this. I have a feeling being shown that. And then you see the other side where it's constantly, they're trying to kill you. They're trying to murder you. They want all your stuff to go away. I'm like, I don't know. Unless you guys change your tone, which I don't even know is possible for Trump and Vance, I think that might be what ends up doing them in as far as their chances on the election.
By the way, Seattle,
yes.
Hello.
Good
to talk to you. That was Matt's angry voice.
Ah.
Matt does impressions. At some point, he'll do Trump, but maybe not.
Already. Hello.
Oh no! I'm
sorry.
To hear that. Yeah. See, this is the problem. Where? How do I phrase this? I think the rank and file Democrats were just so despondent after the debate and how Biden was appearing, and God bless him. I mean, there are some issues, and those of us who have dealt with family members, I mean, my heart goes out. I think they were just so down. And then there was a change. And it's people who are, exuberant. And, I think it's a bit of a hollow feeling right now because they were down so low. People.
Okay. I want to clarify that. So I get what you're saying. What he's not saying that there aren't policies, there aren't things like this. It's just as right now, any change was going to be like, thank gosh, we're here.
Well, yeah, it's a happiness. It's like, Oh my God, I'm despondent, and then all of a sudden, it's sort of like your favorite football team, and they're just whatever, and then they trade for a new player, and you're like, okay, a completion on the first down. Now we're going somewhere, and so I think that's what a lot of this is. Now, can they maintain that? And then they tear their ACL. Anyway, no, I won't even. I'm going to move past it. All right, so. Chicago just cheered, but go ahead.
Seattle just cheered. Trump crowd size, if he doesn't get this under control, if he does not get this under control, here's another thing that could doom him. How much... If Kamala Harris just starts going after him in his crowd size, it doesn't seem like anyone can control him. He just gets so outraged, so angry, off the rails. How much is that going to factor into the next 2 months?
She needs to leave that alone and not even mention it.
Why not?
Don't lower yourself to that level.
Dear God, if he's going to become a spittle-throwing, red-veined freak every time someone says you didn't have that many people there.
Split screen, right? Because when they show him doing that and her saying something like, wow, look at all these people, and not a one of you is AI generated, are you? And be done with it. right? I mean, it's sort of like, people may not know, they can watch us have this conversation, and the split screen between you and I is just like night and day difference. And so, again, spittle throwing guy on the left side of the screen and, hopeful joy guy here on the right. But no, I mean, I think if she if she dismisses it with a joke, then she wins. But if she gets down into the mud, everybody gets dirty.
And that's many people have tried that with Trump, and that's happened.
Yes.
Do you feel as if this time around for Trump, Ivanka not being there and not being part of the team, is not because I'm wondering who is gone now that used to look at him and say, "Let it go, Dad." It's not Eric, it's not Trump Jr. I'm wondering how much Jared and Ivanka were able to be the Trump whisperer per se in the previous elections and keep him from going off the rails like he is right now.
Kellyanne.
Kelly, you think so?
I think so. Well, I do think Ivanka, yes.
Yes.
But Kellyanne is not involved. And I think she was able to rein him in. Again, it's a matter of who do you listen to. He trusted his daughter, and I think the son-in-law in the White House. I don't know so much during the campaign. I think Kellyanne was the one that pulled the rabbit out of the hat for the campaign, and now she's busy collecting a paycheck from one of the cable networks and Ukraine. Apparently, she's registered as a lobbyist. Did you see that?
Yeah. Well, what I have seen is clearly Trump Jr. and Eric seem to be there is this stupidity that comes from those two that is like, Dad will say something bad and it gets ridiculed, and then they try to say something dumber as a way to try to take the spotlight off his dad. And I'm like, okay, you guys don't seem to understand. None of this is working.
You're not going to be old enough, but when Gerald Ford was president, Saturday Night Live used to make fun of him mercilessly for stumbling and whatever. And one of the sketches was, we have to make what he does look normal. And so all the aides were told to stumble. So, the Chevy Chase Ford character would bang his head, then everybody would bang their head. That's what's going on here with the kids. It's like, oh, look how crazy we are. Dad is sane by comparison.
Oh, God. All right. So once again, you can get this little gem of a show on the podcast. Make sure you listen for that. The Iowa Politics Report, I'll post a little bit later on. Find Jeff's books at your favorite book retailer. Jeff, as always, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
We'll see you.
Seattle, Chicago. Talk to you tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next.